Good afternoon and welcome to our weekly media briefing and public health update with Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich. I'm Lorna Virgilla, Hispanic Public Information Officer, and joining us today is Dr. Keisha Davis, who is the county's health officer, Mr. Sean O'Donnell, Deputy Chief of Public Health Services, Dr. Earl Stoddard, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, and our guests today are the county's Climate Change Officer, Sarah Kogel-Smucker, as well as the Director of the Department of Environmental Protection, John Munger. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Mr. County Executive, the floor is yours, and we do have a hard stop for you at 1:15 today.
I've heard that rumor. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Start with talking about climate. The Trump administration could very greatly impact the pace and scope of our work on addressing climate change. It's not just our work, it's anybody in this country who's been trying to address climate change issues. Just this week, when President Trump was addressing the Republican members of Congress, he used the word they. He said they, referring to Democrats, have no idea what they're doing. They use the environment to stop progress, and we are not letting that happen. That's kind of like a complete reversal of things people have been working on now for decades. Clearly, we can no longer count on the federal government to help support our efforts, but that's not going to stop us. It is crazy in this day and age to try to stop the adoption of electric vehicles and construction of infrastructure like windmills and solar farms in order to increase our reliance on fossil fuels. Burning coal and oil have created the unprecedented climate challenge that we're dealing with now. And reversing course is only going to make this worse. It's just hard to believe that there is nobody with any sense in the Republican Party to say this at least is a bridge too far. But here in Montgomery County, we've set a bar high and we've charted a path to reduce greenhouse gases through our climate action plan. This week, we launched a new initiative to help us reach those goals, and it's called the Climate Smart Campaign. And you can see this cute little graphic here. The Climate Smart Campaign is built around the simple yet powerful idea: big change starts small. This slogan reflects a truth we all need to embrace. Each of us has a role to play in addressing climate change, and the small everyday decisions we make, when multiplied across our community, can actually drive meaningful progress. So please, we're asking our residents to make a commitment through a pledge that can be found online. You're seeing it now. Personally, I've been making these changes over the last several years by leasing and driving EVs, adapting my house to solar power, growing my own garden, replacing my gas stove with an electric stove, and reducing the waste that my household creates. I hope this campaign empowers all county residents to help make similar decisions in their households. I've invited our county's climate change officer, Sarah Kogel-Smucker, and the director of our Department of Environmental Protection, John Munger, to this briefing today. They will help explain this campaign and the effort to get more families to be climate smart. It's all yours.
Thank you, County Executive. I'm Sarah Kogel-Smucker, Climate Change Officer for the county. And, you know, it is quite a time for climate, but just the right time to also look at what we can control and the small changes that we can make in our day-to-day lives. So as the county executive shared, we're excited to launch the Climate Smart campaign. It's designed to inspire and inform residents about making climate smart choices in their daily lives, encouraging individuals to take a pledge, as the county executive showed, and focusing on the slogan, big changes start small. Before discussing a little more details of the campaign, I want to actually briefly show some research, and I will share my screen. So this is the Yale Climate Opinions Map. It's from the Yale program on climate change, and they survey the country on their climate change opinions. You could see this darker section right here is Montgomery County. 77% of our residents are worried about global warming. So, you know, we have smart, informed residents who understand that this is a big problem. They're worried about it. They know that it's important. But when you switch to discuss global warming, at least occasionally, all over the numbers go way down. And when you look at Montgomery County, 47% of residents only discuss global warming at least occasionally. And so what that shows us is there are a lot of residents in our county who are worried, but they're not talking about it and they don't know what to do about it. And that is where the climate change campaign, Climate Smart campaign comes in. And what we've heard over and over again from residents is they don't know quite what to do, what changes are going to make a big impact. And then on the flip side, we've also heard that they aren't aware of the county resources that are already there to help folks make climate smart decisions. And so this campaign aims to address both of those concerns. And as the county said, we have big goals. We're going to need residents' participation. That doesn't mean that the county isn't also taking big, bold actions. We are electrifying our bus fleet. We're planting thousands of trees. We remain committed to the big changes we need, but these small changes also add up to meet our goals. So what are we doing? We are encouraging residents to take the pledge by scanning the QR codes. They'll see it out on local media, buses, social media, or you can visit our website at montgomerycountymd.gov/climate-smart. And the pledge is a way for people to commit to climate-friendly actions, but also be connected to county resources to help them do that. So to spread the message, we're using local media outlets, social media platforms, ride on buses, to promote the campaign in English and Spanish. And as I said, the focus is on actionable steps that are easy for residents to adopt. And so I want to hand it over to my colleague, Director Munger, to discuss some of those steps.
Thank you so much, Climate Change Officer Kogel-Smucker, and thank you, County Executive, for your leadership. As the County Executive and Sarah were saying, this campaign is about empowering individuals to take action on a really key, on the key issue of our time. Often people don't know where to start. This lays out a lot of different actions people can take in their home, in their lives, on where to start. So what does that mean? One easy place to start is in your own kitchen with food. Reduce food waste by planning your meals, buy seasonal produce, and compost your food scraps. Keep those food scraps out of the trash. Another important point when we talk about climate change is emergency preparedness. So community members can sign up for emergency alerts, create a plan, and protect your homes from climate risks, which include both heat and flooding. Also, this is a county-wide approach. Sarah mentioned we're electrifying our bus fleet. Use public transportation, walk or bike more. Consider joining the Electric Vehicle Purchasing Co-op. The Department of Environmental Protection's website shares information on where you can get local incentives on buying or leasing an electric vehicle. On the energy front, you can schedule a free home energy checkup for your house to figure out where you can become more energy efficient at your own home. It saves you money and it's good for the environment. Switching to LED bulbs, monitoring your thermostat settings. Sarah mentioned we also have Tree Montgomery, a program that's committed to planting thousands of trees across the county. You too can plant trees which remove carbon, provide habitat, and beautify our community. But the bottom line is we all need to do something. This starts with individual action, and this campaign empowers individuals to take that action. So go to the website, take the pledge, and take action. Thank you so much, County Executive, and thank you, Sarah.
Thank you both. Members of the media will take some questions right now, either for the Climate Change Officer or the Director of the Department of Environmental Protections. And we'll take questions right now regarding the Climate Smart campaign or climate change, or the questions afterwards. Please raise your hands if you have any questions for these two officers this afternoon. No questions regarding the Climate Smart campaign? Going once? Twice? I guess there are no questions from the media. Thank you both for joining us this afternoon. We do know you have to depart as well. And we're going a little quick today because the County Executive has a hard stop at 1:15 also. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you both. The work you're doing is really important, and I'm glad we're able to do it. At least we've got the willpower and the quality staff here to make some impact on all these things. So I appreciate the work you two do. Going back to other things, grant funding decisions blocked by courts. The Trump presidency continues to create chaos and division, not only here in Montgomery County, but throughout every community in this nation. This past week, President Trump made the unprecedented decision to pause all federal grant programs. Then he had to retract some of his grand overreach. And finally, a federal judge had to intervene and put a temporary injunction blocking the implementation of these actions. We don't know if this is going to be a temporary block or a permanent block, but at least somebody's trying to take a look at it. This is deeply troubling and potentially dangerous. Federal grants are not abstract line items. They're lifelines that fund essential services. Montgomery County alone receives hundreds of millions of dollars annually in federal funding, not to mention our school system and state programs that benefit us that also rely on this money. Federal support is critical to supporting public health providers, housing assistance programs, and services for the most vulnerable among us. The county's chief administrative officer shared some information about the Montgomery County aid that we get from federal grants. In 2022, the county relied on $273 million in grant funding across categories like healthcare, homeland security, FEMA reimbursements, and the FEMA reimbursements, they still owe us over $100 million for that. And this chart above does not include the money we get for schools. So we're well over $300 million probably, and that's an awful lot of money. It's like 15 cents on the tax rate, to put it in terms everybody would understand. Public safety could also take a serious hit. We get federal grants that help us equip and train our first responders, support public health initiatives, and maintain critical infrastructure. Remember, if you do anything in any of these programs that talks about equity or diversity, you're not going to get funds. So if you're doing training for police that tries to heighten their awareness of the communities in which they operate, you run the risk of being told you're doing DEI and you're not going to be allowed to do this. Without these funds, our ability to respond to emergencies, ensure public health, and protect residents is going to be undermined at a time when our community cannot afford delays or disruptions. What makes this situation even more damaging and really dangerous is the lack of clarity and coordination from the federal government. The haphazard attempt to implement this policy creates chaos and uncertainty, leaving local governments and organizations in limbo. We still await guidance from federal agencies to determine the full scope of the administration's plans, but a pause on grant funding would create a ripple effect far beyond Montgomery County. Vulnerable Americans across the country will bear the brunt of this misguided policy. And speaking of misguided policies, yesterday, they were attempting to cut off federal funding that helps us do the work they do. They also announced they're trying to offer federal workers buyouts. Essentially, they're trying to gut civil service ranks from any federal worker who disagrees with their decisions and culture, leaving only loyalists and sycophants behind. But no matter how successful they are with this offer, we will see the impact of the reduction of the federal workforce here in Montgomery County. This is going to be really hard on those workers. There are very few vacant jobs in the private sector that match with many of our federal employees. The defunding of federal government programs would immediately impact a myriad of organizations in the private sector that provide support that's done for federal agencies. And cuts in direct funding for social service sector will create immediate unemployment. All of that is going to mean less money from income taxes, and how long and the scale of that will be determined by who can find work and how fast. And for some as yet unknown number, they may be forced to find work elsewhere, which would mean the permanent loss of jobs and the incomes that are attached to them. If people move and if the number of jobs is decreased, it will likely disrupt the housing market locally by putting more housing on the market that can be quickly quickly absorbed, particularly if those jobs pay decent salaries and people's housing prices are above average. Everyone is trying to assess the impact of these cuts, and more is yet to come. It's not going to be an easy adjustment for us or anybody else. The The President's administration is carrying out a more aggressive approach to immigration enforcement than we saw during his first term. Reports of ICE agents having to cancel leave and being given quotas suggest that enforcement actions will continue to escalate. These developments create fear and uncertainty for many of our neighbors, particularly in our immigrant communities. Let me be clear, Montgomery County remains committed to being a welcoming and inclusive community. We will continue to support and protect the dignity and rights of all our residents, regardless of their immigration status. Our local government does not enforce federal immigration laws. That responsibility lies with ICE. We continue to operate under Executive Order 13519 that we issued in 2019 during the first Trump administration. This allows Montgomery County to focus on its role in addressing public safety while the federal government enforces immigration laws. However, we recognize the critical importance of making sure all our residents are informed about their rights and prepared for whatever may come. That's why we've partnered with community organizations, Montgomery County Public Schools, and other agencies to provide resources and support. Our residents can find information on their rights, emergency planning, and services on our Gilchrist Immigration Research Center website. That website is montgomerycountymd.gov/Gilchrist. MCPS has been a leader in this area, ensuring that staff are trained on protocols that safeguard the privacy of students and their families, and they do not share information with ICE. It's also important to address how increased immigration enforcement can impact public safety. For years we've talked about how we've worked hard to get the trust and cooperation of the immigrant community that often comes here fleeing governments that are oppressive and come here with little trust in government. So it's been really important for us to get their cooperation. The fear of facing deportation makes some residents reluctant to report crimes or cooperate because they're afraid if they talk to a police officer, our officer is going to start asking them about their immigration status. That's not something the county's going to do, but it's hard making people feel comfortable with that. Doing all this erodes trust, which can reduce cooperation, making it harder for our police department to keep everyone safe. Our police officers are not tasked with enforcing immigration laws. They're here to protect and serve everyone in Montgomery County. We're also going to hold the federal government responsible for following the rule of law. This week, we filed an amicus brief supporting Maryland Attorney General Brown, along with other states and municipalities, in their lawsuit regarding federal actions last week to end birthright citizenship. This action was a clear violation of the 14th Amendment. We expect that these lawsuits will prevail in a court of law. Montgomery County remains committed to ensuring that everyone feels safe and supportive here. I do want to say on the issue of what's happening in Montgomery County directly with ICE, so far we haven't seen anything that would qualify as a raid. I use so far as the operative word. They have been doing arrests of usually, single persons or a couple of people who are wanted on their list, and they're doing things that they were doing before. It's not that ICE hasn't been active in Montgomery County all along. They do make arrests of people that are on their list, but they have not gone into neighborhoods and locked down apartment buildings and done any mass efforts to deport people. They haven't gone into workplaces yet and lined people up and tried to ascertain who's not an immigrant. So I would say that on the ground, most of what's happening is pretty much like it was before. They just make headlines about it. And because of the language from the Trump administration, these things which happened before and didn't cause massive concern are now causing massive concern because people are afraid that every time they see police taking someone out, that they're taking someone out and it's part of a mass deportation effort. So this is where not being clear about what you're doing and leaving people uncertain contributes to a climate of uncertainty in our population. For our county to thrive, and we're going to talk about a different topic now, we need the right resources, and that requires smart revenue solutions. Maryland General Assembly is exploring a step forward by updating the state's outdated tax system and allowing counties to adopt differential taxation. This would enable Montgomery County to set separate tax rates for residential and commercial properties, following a proven model that fueled success in Northern Virginia. Results speak for themselves because all the rest of you are talking about everything Virginia does. Well, the way they do this, they rank first in our nation for business, while Maryland trails at 31st, and on infrastructure, they're third nationally, when Maryland is only 37th. Businesses in Virginia willingly pay higher taxes than in Maryland. Why? Because they see the value in what they get. Better infrastructure, reduced congestion, and improved transit access. Northern Virginia's use of special taxing districts directly funded projects like the Silver Line and other major highway upgrades. They have increased a business-friendly environment that continues to attract investments. Meanwhile, Montgomery County remains shackled by outdated tax laws. Our current system was built for a time when we were primarily a bedroom community for Washington, D.C. It relies too heavily on residential property taxes. Back then, this was enough to support excellent schools and infrastructure, but Montgomery County has a lot more complex needs now, and the population can no longer be served by our roadways. Montgomery County does not have an urban grid of streets. I've said this before. If you want to go north-south of Montgomery County, you can go on University Boulevard until it runs into Wheaton. You can go on Connecticut Avenue until it runs into Aspen Hill. You can go on George Avenue for a very, very long way, and you can go on Wisconsin Avenue and 355 for a very, very long way. But that's it for northwest roads in the county. So if you think about it, everybody who's living in between, if they're trying to get to job centers, which obviously aren't in neighborhoods, you put a lot of people on very few roads. And that's been one of our Achilles heels. And it's one of the things that makes advancing transit projects really important. So to move forward, we need the ability to raise new revenues and implement forward-seeking strategies, just as Northern Virginia did, to plan for growth and expand the transportation options and boost regional accessibility. I don't know where Virginia is going to wind up on taxes this year, but they are talking about tax increases. But just as a comparison, if you're a resident in Montgomery County, you're paying about $1.04. If you're a resident in Virginia, you're paying about $1.12. The total tax burden in Northern Virginia is a little bit higher than ours. But the commercial property pays a base tax in Northern Virginia of almost $1.25. And on top of that, in areas they're trying to develop, their equivalent of a Bethesda or Pike and Rose, they have special taxes there that add as much as 25 cents or more to that $1.25 total. So they're raising major amounts of money from the private sector that we don't raise here. DC is an even better example in terms of the extreme difference. If you're a resident in DC, you'd pay 85 cents on your per 100 on your property tax. So that would be about 19 cents lower than Montgomery County. If you're a commercial property in DC worth more than $10 million, which is pretty much any decent sized building, you're paying $1.89 compared to $1.04 in Montgomery County. So this is how other jurisdictions have managed to create a fair tax system. We need to do the same thing here. We're urging state lawmakers to give Montgomery County the tools to modernize our tax system, to strengthen our economy, and build a better future for everyone. Speaking of taxes, it's tax season. I don't have to tell you. And for many people, tax preparation can be an onerous and costly process. And many tax credits that people are eligible for are going unclaimed. Our Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, or VITA for short, provides free tax help to eligible residents and connects them with valuable tax credits. To qualify for VITA help, your combined household income should be no higher than $67,000. Last year, a little over 2,200 people took advantage of the tax program, leading to returns of more than $8.5 million. $8.5 million, I should say. The state and federal earned income tax credit, the county's working families income supplement, and child tax credits are just some of the ways families could receive thousands of dollars in tax refunds. But you can't get them if you don't apply for them. And you're not applying for them because a lot of people don't know about them. Montgomery County is one of the few jurisdictions that offers a local supplemental to the state earned income tax credit, ensuring even more support for our families. This program not only puts money back into residents' pockets, but also builds a pathway to self-sufficiency. Eligible residents should call 240-777-1123 to schedule an appointment, or they can visit montgomerycountymd.gov/cashback. That's online, and you can get more information there. As a volunteer-based program, Community Actions VITA relies on the dedication of dozens of trained volunteers every year. I want to thank all of them. I've met many of them, and the county employees who are devoted to helping more of their neighbors utilize this important program. Community partners like CASA, the Equity Center, Cross Community, AmeriCorps Seniors, AARP, and the Community Tax Aid will all be at work through mid-April to ensure those in need get free tax preparation, and we can make this happen. Finally, I want to mention Metropolitan Washington Restaurant Week. More than 100 restaurants, including some in Silver Spring, Bethesda, Rockville, and Gaithersburg, are offering deals. The promotion goes through Sunday, February 2nd. Supporting our local restaurants is a great way to keep your money local, helping our economy. Visit Montgomery.com is a great resource for learning about the promotion and many other things that are happening in the county. For example, the tourism site is promoting the MoCo Eats Food and Beverage Showcase this March. This new event will cater to both food lovers and Montgomery County's robust hospitality industry. Before opening up to your questions, I want to give my health team and any other county leaders opportunities to provide updates they'd like to share. So I'm going to stop them, and I'll be back for questions.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. In terms of updates for health, we have certainly seen an increase in flu activity that is looking to be the dominant respiratory illness that we are seeing right now. MDH last week issued guidance about masking, so we are continuing to follow that. There has also been, people have heard in the news about increases in tuberculosis cases that we are seeing in Kansas. We have not seen that same increase in our area. We do continue to run a tuberculosis clinic, so we are able to provide blood testing for TB, chest x-rays, and we treat latent and active TB at our Dennis Avenue Health Center with including directly observed treatment. So we do have those services available. We did also receive guidance yesterday from the Secretary of Health in collaboration with the Office of the Attorney General regarding guidance in healthcare facilities around immigration enforcement and just advising them on what they can do and what they can do for patients. So we continue to monitor the impact of many of the executive orders that are coming out on the public health. Thank you. I think Sean O'Donnell is on as well, if you have any additional comments.
Just a reminder that we are still in a heavy respiratory transmission season. Influenza is the lead causing of illness in our county right now. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Dr. Stoddard, do you have any comments at this time, or should we open it up for Q&A?
Let's open up for Q&A.
All right, let's go ahead and do that. Members of the media, any questions for the county executive? I see Suzanne Pollack has her hand up. Montgomery Community Media, good afternoon, Suzanne. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I was just wondering, I know, Dr. Stoddard, you have said in the past that you're in regular communication with ICE. Are they calling more frequently? Are they saying anything different, or has anything changed?
So, thanks, Suzanne. Yes, I mean, I've actually been texting back and forth with Matt Alston, director of the Baltimore ERO office for ICE, actually while we've been on this call again. So far, what we have continued to see is they are doing what they refer to as targeted enforcement. The one addendum I would add to that, though, is that, you know, with the change in administration, if they go out to look for a particular individual, for example, that they have who has committed a crime and they're looking to pick that person up, if they interact with other people during the course of that single person investigation and those people are undocumented, they will bring those people in. I think on Monday, I think they were out looking for 9 individuals. They ended up picking up 13 across the state of Maryland. Therefore, there were 4 individuals who were not originally on their list who they did pick up. Several of them had already had removal proceedings that had called for their removal from the country or had other crimes. They weren't looking for the individual, but they had other crimes when they interacted with them and brought them in. And so that's the one shift we have seen. But it remains focused on, and I think ICE has used this term several times, even to me directly, is the worst of the worst, meaning violent criminals, people who are involved in gangs and other things. Obviously, we are tracking this on a regular basis, and so sooner or later they will run out of people who have been convicted of serious crimes, and they'll obviously still have these quotas, and they will likely move on to other categories. But we have not seen that thus far, though we are continuing to track it on a, I would say daily, but that's probably less frequent than we're actually tracking it. It's probably, multiple times a day at this point.
Were only any of those 13 in Montgomery County? The arrests that you mentioned?
On Monday, yes, there was, they actually let us know they were they did a ride along with the Associated Press on Monday in
Okay.
Aspendale and Silver Spring. And so that those were several of the 9 individuals, or the 13, depending on how you count it. I also know that they're not in Montgomery County today. We know that they gave us a heads up that they are operating in other parts of the state today. So they have been very forthcoming with information for us about where they're at and where they're not at. And I would say, sometimes we text them and say, "Hey, are you at this location?" They'll say, "Yes, here's what we're doing." Other times they'll say, "Nope, that's not us." Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Members of the media, any additional questions, please raise your hands. No more questions today for the county executive and officials? Okay, thank you everybody for joining us, Mr. County Executive. We got you out of here on time. Thank you.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Stay safe.